Close your eyes. Spring 2018, room 4370, MIT campus, Cambridge, Massachusetts. A professor stands at the front of the room with a slideshow behind him. The slide reads, Blockchain and Money. His name is Gary Gensler. He used to run Goldman Sachs' commodities division. Then he ran the CFTC, the agency that regulates derivatives. Now he is teaching MIT students about Bitcoin. In this classroom, Gensler is enthusiastic. He calls Bitcoin a catalyst for change. He says Ethereum has many tokens that are securities, which sounds like a warning, but he also says the space has real potential. Students record the lectures. They post them online. The crypto community watches them and feels something rare, legitimacy from someone who understands both worlds. 3 years later, in April 2021, Biden nominates Gensler to chair the SEC. The crypto industry is initially hopeful. He taught blockchain at MIT. He gets it. What follows is one of the most aggressive crackdowns in the history of American financial regulation. Lawsuits against Coinbase, lawsuits against Binance, lawsuits against Ripple, Kraken, Gemini, Genesis, one after another. The crypto world calls it a betrayal. Gensler calls it the law. And the question hanging over everything is, which Gary Gensler was the real one? The MIT professor who believed in blockchain, or the SEC chair who tried to shut it down? Gary Gensler's story begins long before his tenure at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Born on October 18, 1957, in Baltimore, Maryland, Gensler grew up in a city steeped in American history. The son of a cigarette and pinball machine vendor, his upbringing was grounded in the middle-class values of hard work and perseverance. Gensler attended the University of Pennsylvania, earning a Bachelor of Science in Economics and an MBA from the Wharton School by 1979. His academic achievements foreshadowed a career that would oscillate between high finance and public service. In 1979, Gensler joined the ranks of Goldman Sachs, a firm synonymous with Wall Street's financial might. Over 18 years, Gensler rose to the position of partner at Goldman Sachs, where he specialized in mergers and acquisitions in the media and telecommunications sectors. The 1980s and 1990s, marked by financial deregulation and innovation, set the stage for Gensler's future as a financial regulator. The transformative era of the 1990s saw Gensler transition into public service. His expertise led him to the U.S. Department of the Treasury, where he served as Assistant Secretary for Financial Markets from 1997 to 1999, and then as Undersecretary for Domestic Finance until 2001. During this time, he played a role in pivotal regulatory decisions that would shape modern finance. One of his significant contributions was overseeing the modernization of the financial system, including the development of electronic trading. These efforts were part of a broader push towards efficiency and transparency in markets, yet they also laid the groundwork for the complexities and challenges that cryptocurrencies would later introduce. By the end of the 1990s, the financial world was on the brink of a new millennium. The rapid rise of derivatives was both an opportunity and a risk for regulators. Gensler, alongside others, navigated these waters, pushing for increased oversight, an experience that would become invaluable during his later role at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC. In 2009, President Barack Obama nominated Gensler to chair the CFTC amid an environment of economic recovery and reform. The financial crisis of 2008 had exposed systemic vulnerabilities, demanding urgent regulatory responses. Gensler's tenure at the CFTC was defined by the implementation of the Dodd-Frank Act, which sought to mitigate systemic risks in derivatives trading. His relentless pursuit of transparency in trading earned him a reputation as a diligent and sometimes controversial regulator. Under Gensler's leadership, the CFTC pushed for real-time trading data and position limits, aiming to prevent another financial collapse. His commitment to accountability within trading markets set a precedent that would echo in his later work at the SEC. Yet, despite his focus on traditional financial instruments, the seeds of a new era were quietly germinating. Cryptocurrencies, with Bitcoin paving the way, began capturing the imagination of technologists and entrepreneurs alike. By the early 2010s, this nascent industry was poised for explosive growth. It was against this backdrop that Gensler transitioned to academia. In 2014, he joined the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, as a senior advisor to the president and a professor of the practice of global economics and management. Here, he taught a course titled Blockchain and Money, which dissected the potential and pitfalls of blockchain technology. Gensler's lectures at MIT showcased both his admiration and skepticism towards cryptocurrencies. He explored the technological innovations that blockchain offered, while questioning the feasibility of replacing traditional financial systems. His academic inquiry into blockchain would become a touchstone for the crypto community, highlighting the complex duality of his perspective. Students and colleagues remember Gensler as an engaging educator, capable of elucidating complex financial concepts with clarity and insight. His ability to translate intricate theories into understandable terms reflected both his intellectual rigor and practical experience. These attributes would later underscore his approach as SEC chairman. April 2021 marked a significant turning point in Gensler's career. After a polarized confirmation process largely split along party lines, he was appointed as the chairman of the SEC. The political dynamics of his appointment were a testament to the contentious landscape of financial regulation at the time. With his appointment, Gensler inherited a regulatory body grappling with the burgeoning crypto market. The explosion of digital assets, ICOs, and exchanges presented a formidable challenge to the SEC's traditional oversight mechanisms. Gensler's tenure began with the imperative to navigate this uncharted territory. His early statements as SEC chairman underscored a commitment to investor protection and market integrity. Gensler declared that most cryptocurrencies, with the exception of Bitcoin, fell under the category of securities, necessitating regulatory compliance. This stance was met with both praise and criticism from various stakeholders in the financial ecosystem. Gensler's regulatory approach ignited a fiery debate within the crypto community. Supporters hailed his efforts to bring order to a chaotic market, emphasizing the need for clear guidelines and investor safeguards. Critics, however, viewed his actions as stifling innovation and imposing unnecessary restrictions on a transformative industry. As Gensler's story unfolds, it is clear that his journey from finance to academia and now to regulatory leadership is marked by a continuous thread of adaptation and foresight. His ability to pivot from one domain to another while maintaining a focus on transparency and accountability speaks to a career driven by a deep sense of duty. Yet, the narrative of Gary Gensler is far from over. As we conclude this chapter, the stage is set for the intricate dance between innovation and regulation to continue. The ensuing chapters will explore not only his actions, but the broader implications for the cryptocurrency landscape. The story that follows is one of tension, transformation, and the relentless pursuit of balance in an ever-evolving world. With the groundwork laid, we move forward to Chapter 2, where the vibrant halls of MIT echo with the discussions of blockchain's promises and perils. Here, Gensler's teachings intersect with the very technology he now seeks to regulate. It was not long ago, in the hallowed halls of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that Gary Gensler first found himself deeply embedded in the world of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Between 2014 and 2018, as a senior advisor at MIT, he taught a course titled Blockchain and Money. This course became a crucible where theoretical knowledge met practical implications, shaping Gensler's understanding of digital currencies. With each lecture, Gensler dissected the potential and pitfalls of blockchain technology. He emphasized the ability of decentralized ledgers to transform financial systems, while also cautioning against their misuse. His students, a mix of eager young minds and experienced professionals, listened intently as he discussed the complexities of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Gensler's words carried weight, not just because of his extensive background, but also due to his apparent neutrality, a stance that would later seem paradoxical to some. Gensler's focus on blockchain's regulatory aspects was particularly prescient. He often highlighted the importance of balancing innovation with consumer protection, a theme that would become central during his tenure at the SEC. In one memorable session, he referenced the 1998 long-term capital management collapse, illustrating how unregulated financial innovations could spiral out of control. This historical context was not just academic for Gensler, it was personal. Having navigated the tumultuous waters of financial regulation for decades, he understood the delicate equilibrium needed to prevent systemic risks. Throughout his course, Gensler maintained a cautious optimism towards cryptocurrencies. He acknowledged their potential to reduce transaction costs and increase access to financial services. Yet, he was equally aware of their susceptibility to fraud and market manipulation, issues that unregulated markets could exacerbate. His approach was methodical, dissecting the technology with the precision of a seasoned analyst. This was not surprising given his 18 years at Goldman Sachs, where he rose to partner, sharpening his analytical skills and financial acumen. In 2009, Gensler's career took a pivotal turn when President Barack Obama nominated him to chair the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC. This role placed him at the forefront of regulating derivatives, a responsibility that he took on with tenacity. His efforts to increase transparency in the derivatives markets after the 2008 financial crisis were notable. By the time he left the CFTC in 2014, Gensler had established himself as a formidable advocate for financial reform. Returning to academia at MIT, Gensler found a new platform to influence future financial regulations. His lectures became a repository of knowledge for students and industry professionals alike. They were also recorded and later used by the crypto community as reference points to both support and criticize his regulatory actions as SEC chairman. This duality mirrored the complex relationship between innovation and oversight that Gensler himself navigated. In April 2021, his career trajectory took another significant step when he was confirmed as the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. This confirmation occurred largely along party lines, reflecting the polarized political climate of the time. As he assumed his new role, the world of cryptocurrencies was far different from the one he had explored at MIT. The market had grown exponentially, with countless new digital assets and platforms emerging. Gensler's experience at MIT, combined with his regulatory background, positioned him uniquely to tackle the challenges ahead. He approached his new role with a mandate to protect investors while fostering fair and efficient markets. Yet the task before him was daunting. The crypto industry, known for its rapid innovation and occasional volatility, presented a regulatory puzzle unlike any other. His appointment was met with both anticipation and apprehension. Supporters hoped his deep understanding of blockchain would lead to thoughtful regulation, while skeptics feared an overzealous crackdown. Gensler's reputation as a tough regulator preceded him, and his early statements as SEC chairman suggested a firm stance on enforcing existing securities laws. Within months, Gensler made his position clear. In an address to the Aspen Security Forum in August 2021, he declared that many cryptocurrencies resembled securities and should be regulated as such. His assertion that most digital assets were under SEC jurisdiction sent ripples through the industry. This was a shift from his earlier academic explorations, where he had described the potential for blockchain to foster innovation. Now, as a regulator, his focus was on ensuring that such innovation did not occur at the expense of investor protection. Lawsuits against major exchanges like Coinbase and Binance soon followed. These actions marked the beginning of one of the most aggressive enforcement campaigns against the crypto industry in U.S. history. Gensler's determination to regulate cryptocurrencies was unwavering, driven by the lessons of past financial crises and the potential risks he had anticipated during his MIT lectures. The lawsuits highlighted a central premise of Gensler's regulatory philosophy: clarity and compliance within financial markets. By targeting large exchanges, he aimed to set a precedent for industry standards. This approach, however, was met with resistance. Many within the crypto community viewed these actions as stifling innovation and limiting the growth of a nascent industry. Despite the pushback, Gensler remained resolute. His actions were guided by the belief that robust regulation would ultimately strengthen the crypto ecosystem. He often cited the need for a level playing field, where all market participants adhered to the same rules. This was not just about enforcement, but about creating an environment where innovation could thrive within a framework of accountability. As Gensler navigated his role at the SEC, the tension between innovation and regulation continued to unfold. His journey from MIT professor to SEC chairman encompassed a profound understanding of both the potential and perils of financial technology. The decisions he made were informed by decades of experience and a deep-seated commitment to safeguarding the integrity of financial markets. Yet, the road ahead was uncertain. The crypto community's response to Gensler's regulatory actions was evolving. Initial optimism had given way to a more contentious relationship, with debates about the future of digital assets growing more intense. As Gensler pressed forward, the question remained: could a balance between innovation and regulation truly be achieved? The answer would come not just from policy, but from the ongoing dialogue between regulators and innovators. This interaction would shape the trajectory of the crypto industry in the years to come. As we move to the next chapter, the story of Gary Gensler's regulatory journey is far from over. The stage is set for further exploration of the crypto community's response to his enforcement campaign, revealing deeper insights into the complex dynamics at play. The stage is set for further exploration of the crypto community's response to his enforcement campaign, revealing deeper insights into the complex dynamics at play. Gary Gensler's confirmation as SEC chairman in April 2021 was met with a mix of anticipation and trepidation within the crypto community. The industry had witnessed his academic musings at MIT and hoped for an informed, even-handed approach. Yet as Gensler embarked on what would become the most aggressive enforcement campaign in U.S. history against cryptocurrencies, the conversation shifted. For many, Gensler's actions felt like a betrayal of the insight he displayed in his MIT lectures. There, he had dissected blockchain technology with a nuanced understanding, acknowledging both its potential and its pitfalls. His stance at the SEC seemed starkly different: a rigid declaration that most cryptocurrencies were unregistered securities, with few exceptions, notably Bitcoin. This hardline position sent ripples through the crypto world, a landscape characterized by its ethos of decentralization and innovation. The crypto community, historically wary of traditional financial authorities, found itself increasingly at odds with Gensler's regulatory framework. A striking illustration of this tension was the reaction to Gensler's lawsuits against major exchanges like Coinbase and Binance. These platforms, so central to the everyday operations of crypto enthusiasts, suddenly faced existential threats. The lawsuits weren't just legal challenges. they were seen as attacks on the very infrastructure of the crypto ecosystem. On Twitter, forums, and decentralized platforms, voices rose in unison, expressing frustration and disbelief. Figures like Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, and Changpeng Zhao of Binance became vocal critics of the SEC's approach. They argued that the lack of clear regulatory guidance was stifling innovation and driving businesses offshore. The narrative in the crypto community shifted rapidly from one of cautious optimism to seeing Gensler as an adversary, a regulator out of touch with the innovations he once taught. Yet, this wasn't merely a clash of personalities or egos. It was emblematic of a deeper conflict between innovation and regulation. Historical context adds layers to this unfolding story. The crypto community has roots in the libertarian ideals of early internet pioneers who envisioned a world free from centralized control. Bitcoin, launched in 2009 by the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto, embodied this vision. It promised a financial system that operated outside government influence. Gensler's actions were perceived as an attempt to drag this utopian vision back under the auspices of government oversight. For many in the crypto space, this felt like a regression to the very systems they sought to escape. The emotional weight of this struggle can be seen in personal stories. Take, for example, Sarah Nguyen, a software developer from San Francisco. Sarah had invested heavily in Ethereum and various altcoins, believing in their potential to democratize finance. As Gensler's enforcement campaign ramped up, Sarah watched her portfolio's value swing wildly, driven by fear and uncertainty in the market. For people like Sarah, the regulatory crackdown wasn't just a financial matter. It was personal. It felt like the government was telling her that her dreams and investments were illegitimate, that the new world she was helping to build was not welcome. Yet, amid this discord, some voices called for a middle ground. Hester Pierce, an SEC commissioner known colloquially as Crypto Mom, frequently articulated a more crypto-friendly stance. She argued for the importance of allowing space for innovation while still protecting investors. Pierce's proposals, such as a safe harbor period for new crypto startups, suggested a way forward that balanced regulation with innovation. Her ideas were well received in the crypto community, highlighting that not all within the SEC shared Gensler's hardline approach. The divide between Gensler's enforcement actions and Pierce's more lenient perspective mirrored broader debates over how to regulate rapidly evolving technologies. Similar debates have played out in other contexts, from the rise of the internet in the late 1990s to the development of artificial intelligence today. Historically, these debates often pit the innovators against the regulators, each side claiming to act in the public's best interest. The question remains whether a balance can be struck that both fosters innovation and ensures consumer protection. As the crypto community grappled with Gensler's actions, many found themselves at a crossroads. There was talk of relocating to more crypto-friendly jurisdictions like Malta or Singapore, echoing the tech diaspora of previous decades when companies sought refuge from oppressive regulatory environments. This feeling of displacement was not just theoretical. In October 2021, the blockchain company Ripple announced its expansion into the UAE, citing a more predictable regulatory framework. For many, this move signaled the beginning of an exodus that could reshape the global crypto landscape. Yet, despite the tension and uncertainty, the crypto community is nothing if not resilient. Many within it remain committed to realizing their vision, whatever regulatory hurdles lie ahead. They continue to build, innovate, and push for change, believing that the future of finance is decentralized and inclusive. As we ponder the unfolding implications of Gensler's campaign, the stage is set for legal battles that will define the future of cryptocurrency in America and beyond. The next chapter will explore these battles in more detail, examining the specific lawsuits filed and their impact on the industry. Here the story moves toward understanding the deeper legal ramifications of this regulatory clash and what they might mean for the broader landscape of financial innovation. Gary Gensler's tenure at the Securities and Exchange Commission was marked by a turning point in July 2021 when he made a pivotal announcement. He declared, in no uncertain terms, that most cryptocurrencies were to be considered unregistered securities. This proclamation shook the cryptocurrency world to its core. At the heart of Gensler's enforcement campaign was an unwavering belief in the need for regulation and transparency in financial markets. Gary Gensler, drawing from decades of experience, knew the importance of oversight. His career at Goldman Sachs had taught him the nuances of financial ecosystems, while his time at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, during the Obama administration equipped him with the tools to navigate complex regulatory landscapes. As the chair of the SEC, he was committed to protecting investors and maintaining fair markets. His declaration was not merely a regulatory stance, but an assertion of his vision for a safer financial future. In the weeks following the announcement, the SEC initiated lawsuits against major cryptocurrency exchanges like Coinbase and Binance. On July 22, 2021, the SEC filed a significant lawsuit against Coinbase, alleging that the platform had facilitated the trading of unregistered securities. Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, expressed disbelief, noting that the company had sought to adhere to existing regulations. Despite these assurances, Gensler remained firm, emphasizing that legal compliance was non-negotiable. Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange by trading volume, found itself under similar scrutiny. On August 5, 2021, the SEC accused Binance of allowing the trade of tokens it deemed securities without proper registration. Changpeng Zhao, Binance's CEO, known in the industry as CZ, questioned the SEC's approach, arguing that the regulatory framework was outdated for digital assets. Yet Gensler saw it differently, viewing the digital asset space as requiring the same rigorous standards applied to traditional securities. The backlash from the cryptocurrency community was swift and fierce. On social media platforms like Twitter and Reddit, users voiced their dissatisfaction, describing Gensler as a gatekeeper of innovation. The phrase "Gensler versus crypto" began trending as a rallying cry against perceived overreach. Many enthusiasts believed that cryptocurrencies offered a democratizing force in finance, one that should remain unencumbered by traditional regulatory structures. Despite the criticism, Gensler found allies among consumer protection advocates and lawmakers who shared his concerns. Elizabeth Warren, a prominent U.S. senator, praised Gensler for his proactive stance. She argued that unchecked cryptocurrency markets could lead to financial instability and consumer harm. In a Senate Banking Committee hearing on September 14, 2021, Warren stated, "We need strong leaders like Gary Gensler to safeguard our financial system from exploitation." Gensler's position was not without precedent. Historically, financial markets had faced similar crossroads. The dot-com bubble of the late 1990s and the 2008 financial crisis served as stark reminders of what happens when innovation outpaces regulation. Gensler often cited these events, highlighting the need for vigilance in preventing future crises. His stance was rooted in a historical awareness of market vulnerabilities and the potential consequences of regulatory gaps. The impact of Gensler's actions rippled beyond U.S. borders, echoing in financial capitals around the world. In London, the Financial Conduct Authority took note, initiating its own investigations into cryptocurrency exchanges operating on British soil. By November 2021, the European Union began deliberations on a unified regulatory approach for digital assets, inspired in part by the SEC's actions. It was clear that Gensler's campaign had set off a global conversation on the future of crypto regulation. Within the industry, companies scrambled to reassess their compliance with securities laws. Venture capital firms and crypto startups convened urgent meetings to chart paths forward. Some, like Ripple Labs, decided to challenge the SEC's authority in court, arguing that their digital offerings were distinct from traditional securities. Others, like Ethereum Foundation, began exploring ways to align with emerging regulatory expectations. Amid the turbulence, Gary Gensler remained a steadfast figure. His conviction was grounded in a belief that robust regulation could coexist with innovation. In public addresses, he often referenced his time at MIT, recounting how his students' insights into blockchain technology had informed his views. He saw a future where cryptocurrencies, if properly integrated into regulatory frameworks, could enhance the financial system's resilience and inclusivity. The emotional weight of Gensler's crusade was not lost on him. He understood that for many, cryptocurrencies represented hope and opportunity. In private reflections, he acknowledged the tension between nurturing a nascent industry and safeguarding public interests. Yet, he remained resolute, guided by a belief that clear rules would ultimately provide a foundation for sustainable growth. As 2021 drew to a close, the landscape of the cryptocurrency industry had undeniably shifted. Exchanges began implementing stricter compliance measures, and the market saw a recalibration akin to a course correction. Gensler, observing these changes, considered them a validation of his efforts. However, he knew the journey was far from over, and new challenges lay ahead. The next chapter of this unfolding story would focus on the legal battles that ensued. As the dust settled from Gensler's initial enforcement burst, courtroom dramas began to take center stage. These legal skirmishes would not only test the SEC's assertions, but also shape the future regulatory landscape for years to come. It was a reminder that in the world of finance, everything is constantly in motion, and the turning point was merely a prelude to what was yet to unfold. It was a reminder that in the world of finance, everything is constantly in motion, and the turning point was merely a prelude to what was yet to unfold. As Gary Gensler embarked on his mission to regulate the cryptocurrency industry, the responses from the crypto community became a critical aspect of the unfolding drama. The optimism that once characterized the cryptosphere quickly turned to a blend of skepticism and defiance. Gensler's actions as the SEC chairman ignited a firestorm of reactions, prompting debates far beyond the industry itself. In the early days of his tenure, there was a sense of cautious optimism among crypto enthusiasts. They hoped that his academic background and nuanced understanding of blockchain technology might lead to thoughtful regulations that could foster innovation. However, as Gensler began issuing lawsuits against major exchanges like Coinbase and Binance, optimism diminished. On June 8, 2021, just 2 months after taking office, Gensler's SEC announced its first major enforcement action against a cryptocurrency exchange. This move signaled a clear shift in regulatory approach, and the crypto community took notice. For the first time, industry leaders began to see Gensler not as an ally, but as a formidable adversary. Among those voicing concern was Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase. Armstrong had long advocated for regulatory clarity, believing it necessary for the growth and maturation of the industry. Yet, as Gensler's SEC pursued legal action against Coinbase, Armstrong expressed frustration and disappointment, emphasizing the need for a more collaborative approach. The clash with Binance, led by Changpeng Zhao, or CZ, was equally contentious. Binance, operating globally with minimal oversight, represented exactly the kind of organization Gensler aimed to regulate. In July 2021, the SEC's lawsuit against Binance highlighted what Gensler described as systemic noncompliance with U.S. securities laws. CZ responded with defiance, questioning the SEC's grasp of cryptocurrency markets and calling for more informed regulatory frameworks. The lawsuits underscored a fundamental misunderstanding between regulators and the crypto industry. While Gensler viewed most cryptocurrencies as unregistered securities, the crypto community argued that these digital assets represented novel forms of value exchange, not traditional investment contracts. One particularly revealing moment occurred in August 2021 during an interview with the New York Times. Gensler articulated his belief that most cryptocurrencies, except Bitcoin, should be classified as securities. This statement sent shockwaves through the industry, abruptly shifting the narrative around regulatory compliance. The crypto community's response was swift and impassioned. Social media platforms buzzed with discussions, arguments, and calls to action. Prominent figures like Anthony Pompliano, a noted Bitcoin advocate, took to Twitter to challenge Gensler's assertions. They argued that such a broad classification stifled innovation and ignored the unique characteristics of blockchain technology. Amidst this backdrop, smaller crypto startups found themselves particularly vulnerable. Many feared that increased regulatory scrutiny would hinder their ability to innovate and attract investment. For entrepreneurs like Kathleen Brightman, co-founder of Tezos, Gensler's stance represented a significant threat to the ethos of decentralization that underpinned the crypto movement. In response to the SEC's actions, some companies began exploring relocation to more crypto-friendly jurisdictions. Countries like Switzerland, Malta, and Singapore became attractive alternatives, offering regulatory frameworks perceived as more understanding and accommodating. However, moving overseas was not a panacea. Even in these jurisdictions, companies faced challenges regarding international compliance and operational logistics. The fear of being cut off from U.S. markets, the world's largest, loomed large over these decisions. Meanwhile, in the United States, the pressure on lawmakers grew. Voices within Congress called for clearer regulatory guidelines to provide much-needed clarity and certainty. Senators like Cynthia Lummis, a known crypto advocate, pushed for comprehensive legislation that would balance innovation with consumer protection. Yet as the legal battles intensified, the crypto community also began to reflect on its internal dynamics. The crackdown exposed vulnerabilities, highlighting the need for greater transparency, accountability, and self-regulation. These challenges were not merely external pressures, but also internal reckonings, urging the industry to mature and adapt. The human stories behind these companies added emotional weight to the unfolding saga. For some, the dream of building decentralized systems was deeply personal. The shared vision of a financial ecosystem free from centralized control resonated with many, echoing ideals of freedom and autonomy. As the crypto community grappled with Gensler's regulatory approach, a dichotomy emerged. On one hand, there was defiance, a resolute determination to resist overreach and maintain the integrity of the industry's core principles. On the other hand, there was introspection, acknowledging the need for responsible innovation and ethical standards. In December 2021, Ripple Labs, facing a high-profile lawsuit from the SEC, exemplified this tension. Ripple's CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, maintained that the case against them was fundamentally flawed. He argued that the SEC's criteria for defining securities were outdated and inconsistent with the realities of digital currencies. The Ripple case became emblematic of the broader conflict, symbolizing the clash between innovation and regulation. As the trial progressed, it attracted widespread attention, with stakeholders across the financial spectrum observing closely. By 2022, the regulatory landscape was in flux, marked by uncertainties and potential transformations. The crypto community's response to Gensler's actions evolved, no longer characterized solely by resistance, but also by a push for dialogue and constructive engagement. In this charged environment, dialogue began to emerge as a crucial tool. Industry leaders sought to engage with regulators, fostering understanding and cooperation. Conferences, panel discussions, and think tanks became venues for exchanging ideas and bridging divides. However, Despite these efforts, tensions persisted. A generational divide became evident, with younger industry participants advocating for bold, transformative solutions while older voices called for caution and incremental change. The crack between the crypto community and regulatory authorities remained, but it also opened new pathways for growth and evolution. As the debate over regulation continued, the crypto world stood at a crossroads, teetering between potential innovation and regulatory constraint. Gary Gensler's actions had undoubtedly left a lasting impact. The crypto community's response was a testament to its resilience and adaptability. Yet the final chapter in this unfolding saga remained unwritten, as new legal battles loomed on the horizon and the regulatory debate intensified. And so, as 2022 dawned, the stage was set for the next phase of this intricate dance, a phase that would further test the limits of innovation and power. And so, as 2022 dawned, the stage was set for the next phase of this intricate dance, a phase that would further test the limits of innovation and power. The legal landscape was a battlefield, with Gary Gensler at the helm of the SEC, wielding the authority of a regulatory body that was both revered and feared. His decisions were not merely about cryptocurrencies. They were about defining the edges of financial regulation in an era of unprecedented digital growth. January of 2022 marked a pivotal moment. The SEC, under Gensler's leadership, filed a flurry of lawsuits against several prominent cryptocurrency companies. The lawsuit against Ripple Labs, a significant player in the crypto space, was particularly noteworthy. The case was not new. It had been filed in late 2020, but Gensler's renewed vigor put it back in the spotlight. The SEC alleged that Ripple's XRP token was a security, not a currency, thus falling under their regulatory purview. Brad Garlinghouse, Ripple's CEO, expressed his dismay publicly. He argued that the SEC's actions stifled innovation and harmed smaller investors who had placed their trust in the burgeoning technology. Garlinghouse described the lawsuit as an attack on the entire crypto industry, a sentiment shared by many within the community. His words resonated across forums and social media, igniting debates about the future of digital assets. The legal skirmishes extended beyond Ripple. Coinbase, the largest U.S. cryptocurrency exchange, faced a probe over its proposed lending product. The SEC warned that the product could be classified as a security, prompting Coinbase to shelve the initiative. Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, voiced his frustration on Twitter, calling for more clarity from regulators. His tweets highlighted a growing tension between innovation-driven enterprises and regulatory frameworks struggling to keep pace. Meanwhile, Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange by trading volume, found itself under scrutiny. The SEC's focus on Binance signaled a broader assault on international crypto operations serving U.S. customers. This was part of Gensler's strategy to assert American regulatory authority in a borderless financial landscape. Zhao Changpeng, known as CZ, the CEO of Binance, adopted a more diplomatic tone, seeking to engage in dialogue with regulators rather than confrontation. As these legal battles unfolded, their ramifications were deeply felt within the crypto markets. Prices of many assets experienced volatility, reflecting the uncertainty injected by these regulatory maneuvers. Investors, both institutional and individual, grappled with risk assessments as they navigated a market increasingly under legal siege. The mood was one of cautious optimism, tempered by uncertainty, as the promise of blockchain technology clashed with the harsh realities of regulatory compliance. Gensler's rationale was grounded in history, a history he had witnessed firsthand during his tenure at Goldman Sachs and later at the CFTC. He believed that unchecked financial innovation could lead to instability, drawing parallels to the derivatives markets that contributed to the 2008 financial crisis. His cautious stance was not without merit. Yet it placed him at odds with an industry characterized by its rapid pace and disruptive ethos. April 2022 added another layer to the unfolding drama. Major crypto platforms like Kraken and Gemini received subpoenas, demanding detailed information about their operations. The SEC's requests were broad, covering everything from trading practices to marketing strategies. This aggressive fact-finding mission underscored the SEC's commitment to reining in the industry. Critics, however, argued that such measures were excessive and risked driving innovation away from U.S. shores. Amidst the legal wranglings, the human stories beneath the surface often went unnoticed. Developers and entrepreneurs who had poured their dreams into blockchain projects faced existential threats. Many had entered the field driven by the vision of a decentralized world, only to encounter a regulatory reality that seemed at odds with their ideals. Stories surfaced of startups relocating to more crypto-friendly jurisdictions, seeking refuge from what they perceived as an oppressive U.S. regulatory environment. In Washington, the debate over regulation versus innovation reached fever pitch. Senators and representatives voiced divergent views, reflecting the broader national discourse. Elizabeth Warren, known for her consumer protection advocacy, supported Gensler's tough stance, emphasizing the need for robust safeguards against fraud and exploitation. Conversely, voices like Senator Cynthia Lummis championed a balanced approach, advocating for regulations that nurtured innovation while ensuring consumer protection. May 2022 witnessed a critical juncture when the Financial Stability Oversight Council convened to assess the systemic risks posed by digital assets. Gensler's influence was palpable, as the council debated whether cryptocurrencies could destabilize the broader financial system. Their discussions marked a turning point, acknowledging the growing significance of digital assets in the global economy. Yet, amidst the regulatory fervor, a grassroots movement quietly gained momentum. Crypto enthusiasts, developers, and everyday investors banded together to advocate for clearer regulations that respected the industry's unique characteristics. They organized forums, wrote open letters to Congress, and engaged with media outlets, striving to shift public perception. By the autumn of 2022, the landscape had shifted. The crypto industry's initial defiance gave way to a grudging acceptance of a world where regulation was inevitable. Companies began hiring compliance officers and legal experts, investing heavily in regulatory technology. There was a growing acknowledgement that collaboration, rather than confrontation, might be the path forward. Gensler, despite the controversies surrounding his tenure, remained steadfast. His approach reflected a belief in the transformative potential of blockchain technology, but with a caveat: a belief in the need for guardrails to prevent its misuse. Critics and supporters alike recognized that his actions would shape the future of finance, setting precedents not only for the United States but for the world. As the year drew to a close, the crypto world stood at a crossroads. The legal battles once seen as a hindrance began to be viewed as opportunities for maturation. New alliances formed between industry leaders and regulators, seeking common ground in an uncertain landscape. Dialogue emerged as a key theme, hinting at a future where innovation and regulation might coexist, albeit uneasily. Yet, the questions lingered. Would the regulatory framework that emerged honor the spirit of innovation, or would it stifle creativity and limit progress? The answers remained elusive, but the quest for balance continued, setting the stage for the next chapter in this complex narrative, a chapter that would delve deeper into the regulatory debate, exploring the philosophies and ideologies that underpin our modern financial era. The answers remained elusive, but the quest for balance continued, setting the stage for the next chapter in this complex narrative, a chapter that would delve deeper into the regulatory debate, exploring the philosophies and ideologies that underpin our modern financial era. In early 2022, as the echoes of regulatory actions reverberated through the cryptocurrency industry, the debate reached new heights. Gary Gensler, with his characteristic intensity, stood firm in his assertion that cryptocurrencies, in their current form, posed significant risks to financial stability. His tenure as SEC chairman had already marked a period of heightened scrutiny for the digital asset space, prompting fierce discussions among policymakers, economists, and technology enthusiasts alike. The roots of this debate run deep, tracing back decades to the late 1990s, when Gensler first became entangled in regulatory affairs. During his time at the U.S. Treasury Department, he played a pivotal role in shaping the oversight of complex financial instruments known as derivatives. In 1999, the passage of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which deregulated financial services, presented Gensler with the intricacies of balancing innovation with protection. These early experiences would later inform his cautious approach towards the burgeoning blockchain industry. By 2023, the discourse around cryptocurrency regulation had evolved into a philosophical battleground. Advocates of blockchain technology argued that it promised a decentralized future free from the traditional gatekeepers of finance. Opponents, however, feared the potential for abuse, fraud, and system-wide instability. Gensler's insistence on viewing most cryptocurrencies as securities was rooted in a belief that consumer protection should not be sidelined in the race for innovation. As he often remarked, the rules should be clear, and participants should play by those rules. The ideological clash was not just about finance, but also about control and freedom. Proponents of strict regulation pointed to the collapse of several crypto exchanges as evidence of the need for oversight. From the high-profile implosion of FTX in late 2022 to the smaller-scale failures of other platforms, the cry for regulatory clarity grew louder. Critics of Gensler's approach, however, claimed that his heavy-handed tactics stifled innovation and pushed entrepreneurs to seek friendlier jurisdictions abroad. They feared that the United States might lose its competitive edge in the global race to harness blockchain technology. These tensions were palpable during a Senate hearing in March 2023, when Gensler faced a barrage of questions from lawmakers. Senators on both sides of the aisle sought to understand the rationale behind his aggressive enforcement actions. In response, Gensler reiterated his commitment to safeguarding investors and ensuring market integrity. He emphasized that while innovation was vital, it must not come at the expense of safety and transparency. The hearing also highlighted the broader political dynamics at play. Gensler's confirmation as SEC chairman, largely along party lines in April 2021, underscored the divisive nature of financial regulation in contemporary America. As the debate over cryptocurrency continued, it became a microcosm of larger ideological battles over government intervention and market freedom. The attention on Gensler's policies extended beyond the corridors of Washington, capturing international headlines and prompting discussions in global financial circles. The conversations were not just confined to policymakers and industry leaders. Across the world, everyday investors grappled with the implications of these regulatory developments. Stories emerged of individuals who had invested their life savings into digital currencies, only to face uncertainty amid the shifting regulatory landscape. For many, the promise of cryptocurrency had been one of financial empowerment, a chance to participate in a new kind of economy. Yet, the reality of potential regulation posed questions about the future of that promise. One such story was that of Rachel, a single mother from Ohio who had ventured into crypto investing as a means to secure her daughter's future. She had followed the news of Gensler's regulatory moves with a mix of hope and apprehension. Rachel understood the need for protection against fraud, but worried about the impact on her investments. Her story, echoed by countless others, added a human dimension to the high-stakes policy debates playing out on national and international stages. Gensler's stance also had implications for the broader financial system. As he continued to engage with stakeholders in the crypto industry, discussions centered on how best to integrate these new technologies into existing regulatory frameworks. This was a challenge not only for the SEC, but also for global financial regulators seeking to harmonize their approaches. In July 2023, the Financial Stability Board, an international body tasked with monitoring global financial stability, convened a special meeting to address these issues. Gensler participated, advocating for a coordinated, cross-border regulatory strategy. The urgency of these discussions was underscored by an array of high-profile hacks and scams that plagued the crypto world. From the $600 million Poly network hack in August 2021 to the Bitmart breach in December 2021, security remained a pressing concern. These incidents highlighted vulnerabilities that could not be ignored, reinforcing Gensler's argument that unregulated markets were fertile ground for bad actors. As the debate persisted, it became clear that finding a balanced approach was crucial to ensuring both innovation and safety. Despite the challenges, the debate also sparked a wave of creativity within the industry. Entrepreneurs and developers began to explore new ways to comply with regulations while maintaining the core principles of decentralization. Initiatives like Decentralized Autonomous Organizations, or DAOs, gained traction, offering a novel governance model that aligned with both technological innovation and regulatory requirements. These developments suggested that perhaps compromise was not only possible but also desirable. In the midst of this evolving landscape, Gensler remained a central figure, both praised and criticized for his unwavering commitment to regulation. His legacy, however, was far from settled. As the SEC continued its enforcement actions, the question loomed large. What was the future of cryptocurrency in America, and how would it fit into the world's broader financial architecture? As we look to the next chapter, the narrative shifts to a broader examination of innovation versus power. The stakes are high, the outcomes uncertain, yet the quest for a harmonious financial future endures. This ongoing debate promises to redefine not only our understanding of currency, but also the very nature of economic sovereignty in the digital age. In this complex interplay of innovation and regulation, the final pages of Gary Gensler's story are yet to be written, and the path ahead remains intriguingly uncertain. In this complex interplay of innovation and regulation, the final pages of Gary Gensler's story are yet to be written, and the path ahead remains intriguingly uncertain. As we delve into the investigation that underpins Gensler's regulatory stance, we find ourselves navigating a labyrinth of financial history and personal conviction. At the heart of this investigation lies a fundamental question. Can innovation flourish without the reins of regulation, or does unchecked freedom lead inevitably to chaos? Gary Gensler's career has been one of navigating these turbulent waters. His appointment as the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission in April 2021 marked a new era of scrutiny for the cryptocurrency industry. Yet it is not merely a tale of enforcement. It is a narrative woven with the threads of economic history, personal principle, and the ever-shifting landscape of global finance. To understand the motivations behind Gensler's regulatory fervor, one must first return to his tenure at Goldman Sachs, where he spent nearly 2 decades. During his time at the firm, Gensler witnessed firsthand the rise and fall of financial products like derivatives. These experiences would later inform his understanding of market dynamics and risks. His subsequent role at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, where he was nominated by Barack Obama in 2009, further shaped his perspective on financial oversight. At the CFTC, Gensler was instrumental in implementing reforms following the 2008 financial crisis. His efforts to increase transparency and reduce systemic risk in the derivatives markets were both praised and criticized. These experiences cemented his belief in the necessity of regulatory frameworks to safeguard the financial system. When he later took up his academic post at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, teaching a course titled Blockchain and Money, this belief was further nuanced by his exploration of blockchain technology's potential. Yet, admiration for the technology did not eclipse his awareness of its risks. Gensler's tenure at MIT, from 2014 onward, allowed him to engage deeply with the crypto space. His lectures dissected the technical and economic aspects of blockchain, offering a balanced view that both acknowledged its innovations and highlighted its vulnerabilities. The crypto community, initially optimistic about having an ally in such a high-profile academic, would soon find themselves at odds with Gensler's subsequent regulatory actions. These lectures, recorded and widely circulated, became both a testament to his understanding of the field and a point of contention when he later took action against the industry. As SEC chairman, Gensler faced the daunting task of applying decades-old securities laws to a rapidly evolving digital landscape. His assertion that most cryptocurrencies constituted unregistered securities was rooted in a fundamental interpretation of the Howey test, a legal precedent for determining what constitutes a security. This stance was not without controversy. Prominent figures within the crypto sphere, including those like Brian Armstrong of Coinbase, voiced their objections, arguing for a more tailored regulatory approach. Yet, Gensler remained steadfast, driven by a conviction that investor protection could not be compromised for the sake of innovation. In the summer of 2022, the SEC under Gensler launched high-profile lawsuits against major exchanges, including Coinbase and Binance. These legal battles served as a crucible for the nascent industry, testing the resilience of platforms that had, until then, navigated largely unregulated waters. The implications of these lawsuits extended beyond the immediate parties involved, casting a long shadow over the sector as a whole. Investors and founders alike were forced to grapple with the reality of regulatory risk and the attendant legal complexities. The investigation into cryptocurrency practices revealed a landscape rife with inconsistencies and ambiguities. From initial coin offerings, ICOs, to decentralized finance, DeFi platforms, the SEC's scrutiny uncovered a range of practices that, in Gensler's view, required stringent oversight. Yet it was not merely about policing. It was about forging a path forward that balanced innovation with responsibility. Gensler's background in both finance and academia uniquely positioned him to undertake this challenge. One of the critical aspects of the investigation was its focus on investor protection. For Gensler, this was more than a regulatory mandate. It was a moral imperative. The 2008 financial crisis had underscored the devastating impact of insufficient oversight, and Gensler was determined to prevent a repeat scenario in the rapidly growing cryptocurrency market. The stakes were high, and the margins for error slim. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the regulatory landscape would need to evolve alongside the technologies it sought to govern. The existing frameworks, largely designed for traditional securities, were ill-equipped to handle the nuanced realities of digital assets. Gensler's challenge was to bridge this gap, drawing on his extensive experience in financial regulation while navigating the uncharted waters of blockchain innovation. The human stories behind the investigation were as varied as they were impactful. Entrepreneurs who had pioneered the early days of crypto found themselves at a crossroads, forced to contend with a regulatory environment that was at times as unpredictable as the market itself. For many, the SEC's actions under Gensler's leadership marked a turning point, a moment of reckoning that would shape the future of their ventures and the industry at large. One such story was that of Changpeng Zhao, CEO of Binance, who who faced significant scrutiny as part of the SEC's investigations. Zhao's journey from humble beginnings to leading one of the world's largest crypto exchanges exemplified the meteoric rise of the industry. Yet, with that rise came challenges that reflected broader questions about governance, compliance, and the role of regulation in fostering sustainable growth. As the investigation deepened, it also highlighted the cultural and ideological divides within the crypto community. On one side were those who saw regulation as an essential guardrail for a rapidly growing industry. On the other, those who viewed it as an impediment to the innovation that had driven crypto's explosive growth. Gensler's approach, often perceived as stringent, was rooted in a belief that without checks and balances, the promise of crypto could easily give way to peril. The narrative that unfolded during Gensler's tenure was one of conflict and convergence, of old paradigms clashing with new realities. As the investigation progressed, it raised critical questions about the future of finance in a digital age and the role that regulators should play in shaping that future. In the end, the investigation was more than a mere examination of practices. It was a reflection of the broader themes of innovation, power, and responsibility. As we move forward in this story, the next chapter promises to delve deeper into these themes, exploring the evolving landscape of global finance and the forces shaping its trajectory. As we move forward in this story, the next chapter promises to delve deeper into these themes, exploring the evolving landscape of global finance and the forces shaping its trajectory. The legacy of Gary Gensler's tenure at the Securities and Exchange Commission is more than just a series of regulatory decisions. It is a testament to the complex interplay between innovation and governance. To understand the full scope of his impact, one must consider not only the laws he enforced, but also the cultural and financial ecosystems he influenced. This chapter aims to unravel the threads of how Gensler's actions have left an indelible mark on both regulation and innovation in the digital age. Gary Gensler's approach to cryptocurrency regulation was a culmination of years spent navigating the treacherous waters of financial oversight. With a career that began at Goldman Sachs, where he spent 18 years, rising to the level of partner, Gensler was no stranger to the intricacies of global finance. His time at Goldman Sachs was marked by a deep understanding of derivatives, assets that would later form the core of his regulatory focus. In 1997, he was tapped by the Treasury Department, where he would confront the challenges of financial innovation head-on, shaping policies that reverberate to this day. One of the most significant decisions of his early public service career came in the late 1990s, when he was involved in the oversight of derivatives markets. This experience proved invaluable when President Barack Obama nominated him to chair the Commodity Futures Trading Commission in 2009. During his tenure at the CFTC, Gensler championed reforms following the financial crisis of 2008, emphasizing transparency and risk management. These principles would later inform his approach to cryptocurrency, where opaqueness and volatility often reigned. By the time he joined MIT in 2014 to teach blockchain and money, Gensler was well versed in both the promises and pitfalls of financial innovation. His lectures at MIT became a focal point for scrutinizing blockchain technology, where he examined it with the precision of a scholar and the skepticism of a seasoned regulator. The crypto community initially welcomed his insights, viewing him as an ally who understood their world. However, as his regulatory stance hardened, these same lectures were used to question his motivations, creating a dichotomy between his academic past and regulatory present. Gensler's confirmation as SEC chairman in April 2021 marked the beginning of a new chapter in his career. His appointment, largely along party lines, was seen as a signal of the Biden administration's commitment to rigorous financial oversight. Almost immediately, Gensler launched an enforcement campaign that would become the most aggressive against the crypto industry in U.S. history. His declaration that most cryptocurrencies constituted unregistered securities sent shockwaves through the industry, sparking debates about the future of digital assets. This stance led to high-profile lawsuits against major exchanges like Coinbase and Binance, which became emblematic of the broader struggle between regulatory bodies and the burgeoning crypto community. The lawsuits, often seen as a clarion call for more stringent oversight, were met with fierce resistance from proponents of digital currencies who argued that such measures stifled innovation. Yet for Gensler, the costs of inaction seemed greater. The potential for fraud and manipulation in unregulated markets posed risks not just to investors, but to the very integrity of the financial system he was sworn to protect. Throughout his tenure, Gensler remained steadfast, driven by a belief that investor protection and market integrity were paramount. He often cited the lessons of the 2008 financial crisis, where lax oversight had devastating effects on the global economy. The memory of those events loomed large over his actions, serving as a reminder of the high stakes involved in financial regulation. His critics, however, saw his approach as overreach, arguing that it could hinder the United States' ability to lead in the rapidly evolving digital economy. The legacy of Gensler's SEC tenure will likely be debated for years to come. On one hand, his efforts to impose regulatory clarity on the crypto industry could pave the way for a more stable and transparent market, potentially attracting institutional investors wary of unregulated environments. On the other hand, the aggressive nature of his enforcement actions raised concerns about the potential for government overreach and the stifling of innovation. This tension between regulation and innovation is not new, but it is particularly pronounced in the context of digital currencies, which challenge traditional notions of money and value. For those within the crypto community, Gensler's legacy is a cautionary tale of what happens when the ideals of decentralization and freedom clash with the realities of government oversight. Many viewed his actions as a direct threat to the core principles of blockchain technology, which emphasize autonomy and resistance to centralized control. Yet, even his staunchest opponents cannot deny the impact of his work. Gensler has forced a reckoning within the industry, pushing it to confront issues of legitimacy, security, and long-term viability. As we reflect on Gensler's legacy, it's essential to consider the broader implications of his actions. The regulatory frameworks he advocated could serve as a blueprint for other nations grappling with similar issues, influencing global financial policies in unforeseen ways. His tenure may also inspire future leaders to adopt a more balanced approach, one that acknowledges the transformative potential of innovation while safeguarding against its risks. As we close this chapter, we are left with a complex portrait of a man who, for better or worse, has shaped the trajectory of financial regulation in the digital age. Gary Gensler's story is not just about the rise of cryptocurrencies or the battle for regulatory supremacy. It is about the ever-evolving relationship between power, innovation, and the human stories that lie at the intersection of these forces. The next chapter of our story will explore these themes further, examining the broader impact of Gensler's legacy on the future of global finance and the digital frontier. As we close this chapter on Gary Gensler's journey, we find ourselves reflecting on the intricate dance between innovation and regulation, a dance that is as old as commerce itself. Gensler's tenure as SEC chairman wasn't just a clash of ideologies. It was a profound meditation on human nature, on our ceaseless pursuit of progress, and the checks and balances we impose upon ourselves to ensure that this progress does not lose sight of ethics and integrity. His story is a reminder of how trust and technology intersect in our modern world. Trust, an invisible thread that has bound humanity since the beginning, finds itself tested anew in the digital age. Cryptocurrencies, in their audacious promise of decentralization and democratization, challenge this trust, asking us to reconsider its very essence. Gensler's mission wasn't to stifle innovation, but to question how such advancements fit within the fabric of society, bound by laws and the welfare of the many. In the struggle of money, power, and policy, we see reflections of our deepest fears and highest hopes. The monetary systems we design are mirrors of our ambitions, yet they walk a tightrope between freedom and oversight. Cryptocurrencies represent the frontier spirit, the desire to break free from established norms, while Gensler's actions reiterate the need for a guiding hand, a reminder that unbridled freedom can sometimes lead us astray. The legacy of Gensler's crusade lies in the questions it raises. Are we prepared for the consequences of the technologies we create? Can regulation coexist with innovation in a way that protects and fosters growth simultaneously? These inquiries linger long after the headlines fade, inviting us to ponder them in the quiet moments of reflection. As you close your eyes and drift towards rest, consider the delicate balance that shapes our world, a world where ideals and reality constantly negotiate their place. Imagine the rhythm of progress, a gentle tide that carries us forward, ever watchful, ever hopeful. Let these thoughts guide you into a peaceful slumber, where questions weave into dreams and answers patiently await the dawn.